Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
That's Susan pointing at a bottle between their crotch. I pray that John Schlegelmilch isn't rejecting God and doing some weird, you know what I mean? Like that's a mirroring that God to John Schlegelmilch. And Jean and John have the same meaning. And Susan Jean Laurie Dunn's not putting their full name and lives across the street from Jean Malone at 2030. So John Schlegelmilch is a Jesuit superior as a judge. Now, is this his handiwork? Framing, embellishing, planting false evidence ahead of time and telling these people to behave like this. In God we trust on the back of the dollar bill. Does Judge John have God's forgiveness? I pray God forgives Judge John. So my mother has a picture of Jesus Christ. Listen to these phone conversations.
You know, from the benefactors or, you know, the fundraising, whatever, that they'll get their,
So that when true believers don't suddenly
they'll get
disappear.
$250 from this company. Like, I see, you don't even know. You just guess. Now, why would the vet take a $45 coupon for something he normally gets paid $300? So he must be getting reimbursed somewhere along the line.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. To all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Okay, welcome back to the second half of Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. If you enjoyed Inquisition Update, please support Inquisition Update by supporting FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Quote from Catholic Campello said, "The only crime a priest can commit in the eyes of the Roman Catholic Church is to think for himself." That's the only crime a Roman Catholic priest can commit, according to the Church, to think for himself, according to Campello. If a Roman Catholic priest had an attack of conscience and was aware of priest pedophilia and decided to make it public to stop the abuse of children, he would be in violation of Roman Catholic canon law and the pontifical secret. How diabolical is this
Baptist church that dares to call itself a church, that dares to call itself Christian. It is the church of Antichrist, the synagogue of Satan, the very seat of Satan's rule upon the earth. God told us plainly that the dragon gave him his seat and power and great authority. That his power rose out of the bottomless pit. Prophecy fulfilled right before our very eyes. Can any of us in good conscience remain silent about this scourge of priest pedophilia? And stop to think that these same priests govern in Washington secretly through our politicians, Democrat or Republican, that they govern in the state houses of your state, and that they are making this country Catholic. Is there anything to envy about the Roman Catholic Church? Why is it that God's house, the body of Christ, Protestants, why is it that they would forsake the Protestant Reformation, spit in the faces of the Protestant reformers and the martyrs of Jesus for 2,000 years who have given their lives simply because they rejected the authority of the Antichrist of Rome and wish to
From
worship
Chicago,
God in spirit
Illinois,
and in truth, and in truth.
America.
What about all the martyrs? How could anyone who calls himself Christian or calls himself Protestant remain in a church that calls itself ecumenical? It's beyond comprehension. It's absolutely beyond comprehension. Satan himself couldn't write a script as ugly as what was seen taking place right here in Protestant America. What hope could there be for this country if the ecumenical movement continues? He says, indeed, the Vatican revealed its arrogance when in 2007, Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone said, quote, I hope that other institutions will face this same problem, this pedophilia and sodomy. Listen to this. I hope that other institutions will face this same problem with an equal degree of courage and realism as the Roman Catholic Church has done. I wonder if the other institutions have also provided
Charlie
financial
Kirk is either related to
consideration
John Paul
for
II
victims, as the Roman
or
Catholic
is
Church has done.
John Paul II's
That they
son.
have taken the care of the victims and those who are guilty. Unquote. Do you believe the audacity? Have you ever seen hypocrisy more vividly displayed than in this quote from a Roman Catholic Cardinal Bertone? This was published on August 12th, 2007 in Nashville, Tennessee. It's just inconceivable. Listen, the author is obviously uncomfortable with this subject. He says this disagreeable subject will not be pursued further, but let me tell you, I'm not as politically correct as P.D. Stewart, who, by the way, is not very politically correct if you ask me after reading this book. But I'm telling you, I have experience with the reaction of the general, quote-unquote, Christian public when this discussion is brought up. It's just too ugly to talk about. How could anyone who called themselves Christian talk about a subject as filthy as this? They see themselves as too pious to even look at the filth the moral depravity of the Roman Catholic Church. Too pious to even look at it, much less talk about it. I read a book that is dedicated to this subject of priest pedophilia on amateur radio. And you should have heard the outrage from Christian amateur radio operators that the subject wasn't fit for amateur radio, and that I was somehow pornographic and a shock jock on amateur radio. Unbelievable how people can twist to spare their own consciences rather than look this demon right in the face and call it what it is. The scourge of the Roman Catholic Church. Political correctness and self-righteousness trumps all truth. So how is this problem ever to be dealt with? If Christians are too pious to even talk about it, who's going to force our courts to do justice in the name of these kids? Who's going to push our society to rid ourselves and the world of this priestly scourge of pedophilia? No, we're just too pious, so we'll let it go on. We'll make excuses. We'll sweep it under the rug. It's just too filthy to talk about. Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Now, the subtitle of this portion of the chapter is called The Devil and His Surrogates. Malachi Martin's intriguing revelation of the secrets of the Vatican seem to have tacit acceptance by the last two popes, both of whom have been strangely silent on Martin's damning revelations. Now, we're talking about this idea that there are satanic rituals taking place within the walls of the Vatican, and that pedophilia and other sexual crimes, satanic ritual abuse taking place in St. Peter's Basilica. It hasn't been denied by the Roman Catholic Church. It says, in fact, so far, the strongest criticism of Martin's book comes not from the Vatican.
Pope John Paul II was at war with Cardinal Louis Sacco, Louis Raphael Sacco. And he kissed the Quran in 1999.
Time magazine's former Vatican correspondent, whose most potent objection to Martin's claims is
Charlie
to accuse
Kirk
Martin
is
of being a
related to
womanizer
Pope John
and
Paul
unfaithful to
II
his wife,
somehow.
and
He
hence
was
a
assassinated
liar.
last September
That's
2025.
about all Blair has to say. Another protestation, if one could even call it that, was issued by a Catholic, the editor of the Catholic journal Catalyst. Quote, that the Catholic Church
That's
has
Raphael
its problems is
Bidwad.
nothing new,
Raphael
but that has
mocking
problems in the
Cardinal
scale
Louis
that
Sacco,
really
Louis
in
Raphael
Martin,
Sacco,
in reference to Malachi
got control of
Martin
Islam.
described, is pure hype. Perhaps it's because I have a visceral aversion to devil's theories that I find both books plausible. Or perhaps it's because my experience with the church allow for a different interpretation, unquote. What profound reasoning. The editor of the Catalyst could not refute a single claim that Malachi Martin made, and his best argument is encapsulated in these words, quote, now, lest someone think that these are simply novels, think again. Both Greeley and Martin have told Peter Steinfels of the New York Times that their description of the Catholic Church is positively true, unquote. The editor then seeks support from Peter Steinfels